In fact, the argument got so bad one time. Do you remember that Peter and John James and John got their mother involved? And James and John's mother says to Jesus one day, Jesus, grant me one wish. What is it? That my sons would sit at your left and right hand in the kingdom. Do you remember that story? And the Bible says that the rest of the disciples were indignant. You know why they're indignant? Because they didn't think about getting their mother involved. Do you know that the Gospel of John is the only gospel that calls John the disciple whom Jesus loved? All three Gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, call him John. But when John wrote the gospel, his own gospel, he wrote, and the disciple whom Jesus loved. Do you know the Gospel of John is the only gospel that tells you that when Peter and John ran to the tomb, who got there first? John chapter 20, and Peter and John ran to the tomb, and John got there first. I wrote in my margin, and who cares? And John's the guy that said, if all the miracles that Jesus did were written down, the earth itself could not contain the books. So John's only writing things he thinks are important, and he writes, and John got there first. Now, I understand that this is a little subjective. But I really doubt that those disciples, before they met Jesus, argued about who's the greatest. What I'm getting at is this. There's something about hanging around Jesus. Here we go. There's something about hanging around Jesus that causes you to realize that you were born to be amazing.
Amazing, 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 amazing.
Have you ever, do you know the verse, Romans 8:28? All things work together for good. How many of you know this verse? The rest of you should read this Bible. It is really a good book. It's a bestseller. Even a fool's considered wise if he shuts up. All things work together for good, help me, for those who love God and are called according to his purposes. How many know all things work together for good in the end? So if it's not good, it's not the end. Have you ever wondered why all things work together for good? What's the next verse say? For whom he foreknew, he predestined. And whom he predestined, he called. And whom he called, he justified. And whom he justified, he what? Glorified. What I'm getting at is that the reason why all things work together for good is because you were born for glory. You were predestined for glory. Jesus, I hear people say things, even a fool's considered wise if he shuts up. Uh-oh. Even a fool's considered wise if he shuts up. They sound really spiritual. I don't want to steal the glory of God.